Okay, so if I was a pessimist, this would be the graveyard shift. But as I'm an optimist, I just want to inspire all of you to get shit done by the end of it. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you for staying till the end. I know it's been a long couple of days, so much information to take in. I'm going to tell you my story, and therefore it's quite easy for me to talk forever about this because I've lived it, so I need to be very conscious of the time. But it's a story of an intrapreneur, and I don't know whether any of you have heard of that word intrapreneur, but an entrepreneur is when you're doing it for yourself, but you have all of those kind of abilities to like self-starter abilities, but an intrapreneur is doing it within a very large organization. So Ogilvy is in London, 1,800 people, 10 group companies. It's massive. So to be an intrapreneur, it's an entrepreneurial spirit, but within a very large organization. So this is my story, and I hope to leave you with a few kind of maybe 9 or 10 different ways in which when you leave here, hopefully you can take a few of those and just go and just one tiny thing. It just takes one tiny thing to just make you feel like you're getting something done, as opposed to procrastinating, thinking that you're never going to get up to that level. This is on my wall in my office. I don't know whether you can all see it, but I'll read it. It's from Machiavelli and the Prince. It must be considered that there's nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle than to initiate a new order of thing. And I keep that above my desk because I know it is goddamn difficult. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So it's always going to be a pain. It's always going to be difficult. So even if you're thinking, I'm going to leave my job after this and I'm going to go and do something else, that will also be difficult. So you might as well just stay in where you are, and you know everything, you know all the people, try and do it from within. So it will always be difficult, is what I'm saying. So when I kind of first started at Ogilvy, that was 15 years ago. So I was brought in to look at moving them from an analog world to a digital world. So looking at workflow system, finance system, digital asset management system. Though I guess digital transformation, as we would call that now. But it was just finding ways to make things more efficient, quicker, better, stronger, faster. And so therefore, especially with digital asset management system, it was getting rid of tapes, getting rid of couriers, starting to do digital delivery, all things that are difficult to implement and people don't like change. I'd be phoned up, when I'd said that it was a digital delivery of TV commercials, people would phone me up and say, where's my tape? And I'd say, I haven't sent it. Go to your post house and pull it down. That now sounds normal. 10 years ago or so, it wasn't normal. It was difficult. But 3 months really is all it kind of takes for that pain to disappear. We know what it's like with Facebook, or they do updates and you think, oh, I don't like this new one. And 1 week later, you can't even remember what the old one was like. So it will be painful, any kind of change to begin with. But if you remove the old way of working and deal with the pain for probably 12 weeks, a little bit like when you have a baby. Many of you know what that's like. You've got the crying going on, and then kind of you hit the 3-month mark, and then it starts to get a little bit easier. You have to go through that pain barrier. Don't think that it's going to go away. It won't. So that was kind of like my initial stages of doing that and going through that pain, and then starting to see that actually technology was really starting to change things, advertising and communications, but literally any organization was going to be hit with it, music, broadcast, publishing, banks, literally everyone. So it was a case of thinking, okay, well then I might as well just embrace it now and just go with it. So these are a few little things that I've learned along the way, little pointers. So the first thing that I learned, if I was going to do any kind of, if I was going to innovate and do something that was new, never been done before, I needed freedom to test and learn, and I needed a budget. But we all know what that means. You go to the finance director and you say, I'd like someone to go to South by Southwest and report back all these learnings. And they'd say, yeah, let me think about that for a minute. No. So therefore, you have to be cunning and think of different ways in which to get that budget, or you will always have no. So you have to have that little tiny bit of budget. And so I'll show you ways in which we did it to enable us to build a website, because obviously when you ask, can I have money to build a website? The answer is no. a physical lab space that we have in the office. So that's kind of, in a summary, what the labs is about: educating, inspiring, and innovating people within Ogilvy in London and our clients. And so the physical lab space had everything, you know, that the show and tell guys were talking about yesterday, from 3D printers, 3D auto-stereoscopic TV screens, eye tracking, brain reading, all of that kind of stuff in a physical space to touch and learn. And the reason it's in there, we haven't purchased it or bought it, but it's all from relationships. And I'll go through the reason as to how you get those relationships and partnerships in a second. And there's three main ones, three girls, me, Shannon, and Gemma. We have a little bit of Dan, who works with Rory Sutherland and with behaviour change and Ogilvy change, and a little bit of Harry, who's kind of like an intern within Ogilvy, who's 19. He was on The Apprentice when he was like about 14 or something. So you start to kind of gather this merry group of people, but there's just really three of us. And there's now, I think there's about 1,800 people in the UK group. So you don't need to have lots of people running it. You're not building an empire. But the difference is that we don't run a P&L. We run a little lab R&D part, almost like a little speedboat against an oil tanker. The oil tanker needs to keep on moving, and it's big. But the speedboat kind of zips in and out and kind of feeds it and helps it. So then we have the 6 R's. So if you're going to get a budget, or if you have any kind of money, or if you want to keep your job, or you're constantly justifying your existence, you've got to have a measure of success. So I just call them my 6 R's, very advertising perhaps, but actually they're very non-advertising. They're very regular reasons as to what we do within the labs to make it a measure of success. So everything we do has to show an increase in revenue, reputation, whether that be awards or people talking, recruitment of new diverse talent, retention of existing staff who want to carry on working there because of the stuff that we're doing, relationships, that's all the partnerships that we have, and responsibility, that's giving back, mentoring, students, startups, whatever it is, we have got to give back as well. And we do that via these semesters of learning. So this is the process for innovation. So I've been in advertising for 27 odd years, and therefore I know how an agency works from beginning to end. So the process of innovation with these semesters is, I could see there were so many things happening, and it was just all very random. I'd send notes around to everyone saying, oh, this is good and this is good. And so I realized that actually it needed to be way more focused. So a semester is 24 weeks or 6 months. And what you have is, our first ever semester was streaming, and that was about 9 or so years ago. So we see over 24 weeks, 10 to 15 different streaming companies every other week. Nothing else. We don't do anything but streaming. Everything we're searching on, everything we're doing, the 3 of us in the labs and some people who are part of the lab team for that semester across all the other group companies, we are just literally trawling and searching and seeing what is happening globally on that topic. Then we are attaching it to business. So it happened to be that Ford chairman at the time was doing internal comms to his company, and it was that big, and it was pixelated and buffering, and you couldn't really hear anything. And yet I'd seen a company with streaming who could deliver full quality HD stream to your desktop like that, and wondered why they weren't using it. So sold it into Ford, which gave us 2 extra revenue streams. 1, because we'd never done internal comms for them before, and 2, because we produced the content for them. So it wasn't a 30-second TV ad, but it was a 90-second film that went to 22,000 desktops in 19 countries in 5 languages. But we make the Ogilvy staff implement it. So whereas at first they might say, oh, we only do TV, we then say, but not anymore. So they are the ones who are, so it's a change agent piece. They are the ones that are actually doing all the work. We're there as support with the right partner. And we call them partners because they're not suppliers. It's a very different attitude. If you want people to do something for you and go over and above what they would normally do that's never been done before, they have got to be partners. It's a collaboration. It's not like the old-fashioned production companies of, again, you say jump, they say jump, and you say jump, they say how high. It is a partnership where you're all in it together. So you see who is out there in the ecosystem, you attach it to business, you get it implemented, and then throughout the whole semester, you have lab lunches and show and tells, and you share everything with Facebook or Twitter or whoever wants it, because you're not holding on to that information. You're allowing those partners to, have a whole industry that can use them as well, because you're helping that ecosystem grow and get bigger and better. You're not holding on to it. You're helping those little companies be able to have case studies and get more funding, etc. So once you've done that, then the end of the semester, you have a lab day. And I think we're on our 16th lab day. So the semester that we're in currently is future retail, but we've done semesters on startups, streaming, gaming, mobile, augmented reality, big data, behavior change, storytelling. So we kind of always say we know enough to be dangerous about everything. So that's the other, it doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to suddenly know everything. This takes time. It is not a short-term vision thing. It is a long-term vision thing. So they're the semesters, and that's our kind of process. And then you can see how the 6 Rs hit a lot of their kind of ticks through those semesters. The other thing is to remember, I just said that we collaborate now, and it's about relationships, and I'll show you a few kind of videos and case studies for that. So we're looking constantly at new partnerships and being a bit disruptive. So we have a place called Silicon Roundabout in Old Street, full of incredible companies. So quite a few years ago, from our CEO at the time, who'd gone to a WPP thing in Silicon Valley and looked at all of the companies there, she said, oh, maybe we can do it on our doorstep. And that's all the kind of the thing that I need to be able to go ahead and do it. So we picked about 12 different companies, and one of the companies that we saw, that we went round and literally on like a bus, and we all had these T-shirts on, and so there was no hierarchy at all. There was no, that you knew who you were talking to, the CEO or a fellow. Everyone was the same. And we came across a company called It's Nice That. And this now comes into the realm of how do I get my money into the labs? So we do that by working with our Vice Chairman, Rory Sutherland. So he is the most incredible speaker. He's done lots of TED Talks, and he is quite incredible. So what happens is I, however many years ago, said to Rory when I was first doing the lab, you're such a good speaker, can I act as your agent? And the money that I can negotiate and get in for you to speak comes into our lab R&D pot. So you, Rory, are contributing to the labs and the R&D. And he said, absolutely, go for it. So Rory, in his words, I pimp him out, but he was my first revenue stream for the labs. And then I thought, well, maybe when we went to see It's Nice That, and they were talking and inspiring us, and I thought, well, maybe we can do a book, because I know when I offer him to speak, people always say, has he published? But he hasn't, but yet he's written stuff in Brand Republic and Spectator. Maybe we can rework that book. So we publish a book that he's actually not written, but he has in those publications, and weave a story. So, and I've never published a book before, but maybe we can do it, because why not? So the labs then self-published Rory's book, so that when we offer him now to talk, we then offer the book to the delegates at publisher's cost, comes into the lab R&D pot. So that's how we start to make money, small amount of money, so it's small enough to not be seen by the auditors, but we are a self-funding unit. And these are all tricks that I've learned over the years so that we can survive as a little entrepreneurial unit. You know, you hear the word Ogilvy, and probably a lot of you are thinking, oh, well, of course it's easy for her, big corporate organization. No, it's not. It's not an easy thing to do, because it's the last thing that they would give money to. So it's about thinking differently, thinking as an entrepreneur, and thinking, what else can I do to make that happen? Find a way, make a way, not accept the word no. So we see, and inspired by one of the companies on Silicon Roundabout tour, we then self-publish the book, and we self-publish the book to try and get money into the lab as well. And so we did this, and we seeded this with companies to get more people to buy the book and come to our storytelling lab day.
An example of a great psychological idea, the single best improvement in passenger satisfaction on the London Underground per pound spent came when they didn't add any extra trains nor change the frequency of the trains. They put dot matrix display boards on the platforms. Because the nature of a wait is not just dependent on its numerical quality, its duration, but on the level of uncertainty you experience during that wait. Waiting 7 minutes for a train with a countdown clock is less frustrating and irritating than waiting 4 minutes, knuckle-biting, going, when's this train going to damn well arrive? Here's a beautiful example of a psychological solution deployed in Korea. Red traffic lights have a countdown delay. It's proven to reduce the accident rate in experiments. Why? Because road rage, impatience, and general irritation are massively reduced when you can actually see the time you have to wait. In China, not really understanding the principle behind this, they applied the same principle to green traffic lights. Which isn't a great idea. You're 200 yards away, you realise you've got 5 seconds to go, you floor it.
So it was the labs that paid for that. Everything you see on here, the labs have paid for it with our self-funding. And then that is Rory. So, you know, we always thank Ogilvy, especially senior management, because they've allowed for us to go ahead and do this. And I've been bad on quite a few occasions. I know I look very innocent and virginal, and honestly, you have got to have that kind of stomach for doing this and just moving forward no matter what. Otherwise, it can't be done. Okay? Get out of your comfort zone. Really important. I thought I'd come here and I'd know no one. Actually, there's probably about 10 people I know just from over the years, maybe who I haven't seen for, I know, 5, 6, 7 years. Kitty from Picnic and Gianfranco and Mirko, because good people always stay in touch and always congregate in those kind of places. So get out of your comfort zones. Go to an event where you think, oh no, I know no one, I know nothing. That is important. So that's how you inspire creativity. So Will, when he was working with us at Ogilvy, he went to IBC. And again, it's a broadcast conference. There's no ad people there. But he has 2 measures of success. Do a trend report, so whatever you're seeing, you bring back to the masses. But also build partnerships, especially to go with our semesters. So he met a guy called Trey, who had this kind of brain-reading headwear from a company called Mindplay. And it gave the stuff that he was showcasing was really interesting. It could be really good for our storytelling semester. So we brought him in for kind of a lab show and tells. And creatives were working on on a product called Beyond Dark, which was little chocolate drops. And then this, they said, can you measure pleasure? He said, well, I don't know, but we'll work with you guys and see how we can do it. And this was a finished result.
This newcomer brand wanted a bigger bite of the dark chocolate market, so they set out to make their little drops famous for pleasure.
The measure of pleasure was actually commissioned by a chocolate company called Beyond Dark, who, instead of just claiming to have the most pleasurable chocolate, wanted to prove it.
For centuries, philosophers have proposed a unit for measuring pleasure, so Beyond Dark partnered with neuroscientists and technologists in a quest to make it real. To gather enough scientifically credible data, we'd need 100 willing members of the public. Participants were fitted up to brainwave reading headsets, which were set up to analyse pleasure for the very first time.
So because when we did the experiment and we started to see that it was working and we filmed it, we got PR involved.
Beyond Dark 15 to 25% more pleasurable than rivals. On Blue Monday, officially the year's most depressing day, we released our happy news. The first ever pleasure scale made headlines.
You've got chocolate bites, if you tuck into the chocolate...
Oh, she's ecstatic on the end.
Oh, look.
All this chatter pushed Beyond Dark from obscurity to page 1 on Google UK and persuaded one of the UK's largest supermarkets to double their distribution and take on new flavours.
So it ceases to be about technology and more about business.
A fan base was born, with followers suggesting the pleasures we'll be measuring next. The findings from the tests became the advertising. At last, a brand could make emotional claims that were proven. Beyond Dark enjoyed a very pleasurable sales uplift, prompting prompting speculation about where all this could lead us.
Now, the easiest thing would be to me to just come up here and say, oh, this is what labs have done, and just show you that film. But then you wouldn't see the pain that we went through beforehand, and the fact that if I would have asked the finance director for money to send Will to Amsterdam, they'd probably think it was just a jolly. But actually, no, if Will hadn't have gone there, he wouldn't have met Trey. If we hadn't have had the semesters of learning and attached him to the storytelling one, he wouldn't have been brought into the agency to inspire, and they wouldn't have then come up with that idea. So you don't start off with that idea. It is a lot of things that happen beforehand that you need to put in place to be able to get there. Okay. Otherwise, you look at that and think, well, how am I supposed to do that? But we didn't look at that idea and think that's where we want to be at the very end. We literally just went one step at a time. We didn't know if it was going to work. We put the filming in, and labs paid for that just in case it did. And it did, and we made sure that it's one step at a time. You can't get to that end result because you don't know if it can be done because it's never been done before. Okay, so it's all very painful. You're almost laying a road as you're walking along. If you can see it and touch it, it makes it feel real. So when they launched Ogilvy Change, which is our behaviour change unit within Ogilvy, that is really spectacular, actually. But they were going to be launching a site that labs put money into because they didn't have money to do it. So we put our money into doing their first website. And then when they were talking about it, it was just words. It was just, kind of books about behavior economics. And I was in the bar one day talking to one of our global planners and a couple of creatives. And we thought, well, what if you can show what behavior change is? What if that was on the website? Then that would be much easier for people to get their heads around, and that we could then start selling it to clients. And so what we did was this.
As the London riots of August 2011 took hold, people in Greenwich burnt down the pub they drank in and looted the shops where they bought their food. But as the disturbances died down, antisocial behaviour in the area continued. Greenwich Council needed to find a way to stop the problem minority from destroying their own community. We believed that the very shutters that were ripped from their runners could be part of the problem. Could we turn the shutters into part of the solution? We wanted to conduct a social experiment. In 2009, a team of scientists in Pennsylvania found proof that the large head, round face and big eyes so beloved of Disney actually motivates caring behaviour in adults. They proved that cute matters to the brain.
If I was in local government, I know it would be a lot easier to say I'm getting more police out there than to say I'm painting a few shutters. I think we need to work to build confidence that these kind of interventions have their role, that they work and they have their role, and get them taken as seriously as hard interventions which are expensive and in the past have proven not to work.
Could the power of cute minimise antisocial behaviour in Greenwich? After a campaign to recruit local babies and a long night painting, our shutters were resplendent with cute babies' faces, and our experiment had begun. Since our experiment started 6 months ago, none of the shutters have been vandalised, and the locals are enjoying feeling much safer.
If you've got positive images around, it makes you think positively.
They are amazing.
I think there should be more of it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and it looks good.
And it didn't take thousands of pounds or hundreds more police, just a few cans of paint. The people of Greenwich have shown an overwhelming love for the babies, and the shopkeepers have embraced the idea as their own. And before long, communities all around the world were talking about it too. Because when you understand human behaviour, it can be the tiny changes that have the most powerful effect. This could be the dawn of a new era in crime prevention.
So crime went down 18% in that street with those babies' faces. So that was with our behaviour change semester. The measure pleasure was from our storytelling semester. So you start to see that each semester will always deliver to or an award-winning film that picked up a Gold Can Lion. And at the time, I remember the creative director didn't want to do the film to put it in because he didn't believe, because it wasn't a TV ad. But you just keep pushing it forward to make sure that it gets done. Even if people say no, you do it anyway. So it really is that disruptive at times, but being given the autonomy to do that within Ogilvy, I've never taken for granted. It is an amazing thing. work with the right people. So this is my passion project, especially. It's called the Rough Diamond. When I was first on this road of, okay, well, we're going to maybe need different people, not people from, say, St. Martin's who's just drawing pictures. And obviously now the courses have changed beyond belief. But I'm talking about however many years ago, I was starting to see that it was either Oxbridge-educated white middle class or from art college that were just drawing pictures, and I wanted to know, well, where are the people who think a little bit differently, who are maybe they're the ones who, as Sir Ken Robinson in his TED Talk talks about, they're the ones who divergent thinkers, or the ones that are being expelled from school, or the ones that can't sit down and shut up and listen to a teacher for 8 hours. Where were they going? You know, and so we developed something called the Rough Diamond, where you have Ideas Foundation at the bottom, and they look after all the schools in Hackney, Tower Hamlets and Greenwich. And they look after kids from 14 to 16. And we want them to go searching for kids that are not turning up for lessons, quite disruptive. And we have those kids come into Ogilvy for a week's course, and we literally show them a space where they could work that they'd never really encountered before, and that their future isn't necessarily a Tesco's checkout. And then we route them through to continuing their education at School Communication Arts, which is a school that's just run by mentors and students, or Ravensbourne. And then after they've done 2 years at those schools, they come into Ogilvy and we speed date them. We speed date about 60 or 70 kids on every single course: fashion, 3D motion graphics, broadcast, music, every course that they offer. And then we handpick maybe 5 or 6 to work with us for a year. So they'll do 12 weeks in the summer, and then they'll do, then they'll come back to us. They'll go back to school in the September for their last year. The aim is for them to teach their teachers, because I was fed up with the teachers talking about what industry wanted, and they hadn't worked in industry for like about 20, 30 years. Then they come back to us at Christmas, come back to us at Easter, and it's down to Shannon, as her measure of success, to get those kids employed into Ogilvy. And they're not even necessarily jobs that we even know about. So Will, for instance, became our creative lab technologist. Nobody even knew what a creative technologist was at that time. And he's now moved on to VCCP, and you know, these rough diamonds. And he was a broadcast student, and he was incredibly dyslexic, and we had to make up his job role because we didn't know. You're feeling your way all the time. So they then, once they're employed into Ogilvy, then they have the ability, if they've been with us for 4 or 5 years, to then go on to Marketing Academy, which is where they're mentored by top CEOs and CMOs in the country. So you could take a kid that was failing in Hackney, and work them through the Rough Diamond system and have them as future leaders. And this has been going for about 4 or 5 years now. And we say to people, copy it. There'll be other similar institutions that you can work with, but this works because everyone has a vested interest. Now, the labs gives money to school comms and to do various projects with the others, but actually it could work really well without any money changing hands, because everyone has a vested interest within it. Clicker's not working. Am I out of time? I've gone over. Is this kind of like shut up? John? Okay, fine. And I am out of time though, aren't I? No? 8 minutes, thank you. I notoriously, because I get so passionate, I just go over and then you'll be here till midnight, and no. A little success leads to attention. So there's a company called Yershon that do incredible stuff. So when they first started, and we first started in the lab about 7 years ago, they gave us their stuff to just test. And it was putting like a little bracelet on, putting it up to a camera, augmented reality, if you like. So you would be able to see on your wrist, on the screen, watches and a whole catalogue of watches, but it wasn't physically on you, it was on the screen. And you could do the same with earrings, with jewellery, with glasses. And it got to a point where we did so well with the testing that we then showed it to, when we do the show and tells around the labs with the physical stuff, we showed it to the guys in geometry, and their clients at the time were Triumph, and they were working for Helena Christensen. And they decided that they would do something, a campaign within Selfridges, where you could try on underwear in Selfridges without actually getting undressed. So you could see what it looked like on your body on the screen, but not physically on you. So we do lots of beta testing, and this is where the relationships come. We're seeing 10 to 15 different companies every other week, and they might be able to you can showcase their stuff for 2 weeks or 5 months or whatever works for them, and they can just get on the Ogilvy bandwagon and use the name and use it to help their own companies. The art of giving. So this is an example of what we do within the labs. We work with Media Sandbox in Bristol, and that's where the government give maybe about 20 grand away for people to come up with different ideas. And one of the guys, this literally starts off with, he was prototyping something. It was just a plastic ball, and he had plastic cups, and it was a new musical instrument. And we helped them for about 6 months, just mentoring them, just helping them get it from a concept to a finished product. And you're not asking for anything back. And then we attached him to one of our lab days, which was music lab days, and therefore he then met loads of people in connection with that. And the guy is shipping his product all around the world for literally thousands of pounds. It's an incredible, and it's so very heartwarming to know that you have given your time and effort to mentoring these people to help them on their way where they ordinarily wouldn't have got that. Put money behind non-traditional advertising things. This is like the same as going out of your comfort zone. Things that ordinarily, so we run something called Idea Shop, where we help people. It's this pop-up shop in Brixton or East London. We've been doing it now for about 6 years or so, where we just have a few days where we help the local community. We give them 90 minutes of just free advice. And one of the girls who I'd seen was giving her some free advice, and then it turned into a relationship in terms of she then would say, but I've got an idea I really love 3D printing, and I want to develop something where there's a show and a conference, and what do you think, and is this anything that the ad industry would like? And so we get behind her, we give her some sponsorship, and we, not necessarily with money and slap our logo on, but we developed something, it was a mobile app for the first event. The second event was we invested in a 3D printer, and we had a competition for kids, and the winning school got to take away the 3D printer. So we put sponsorship behind weird things, but not just money to slap a logo on. We try and find a different way to sponsor. So she was so pleased with that she said, hey, I've got 3 3D printers. Do you want them in your lab just to kind of, muck around with? And because there by then was a couple of creative technologists and people that were interested in that, they then were working on an IBM Wimbledon brief, which then led to them coming up with this.
So this year at Wimbledon, we're looking at the real-time analytics and using as well 3D printing to create unique trophies for each player.
With this, they're tracking lots of different elements of how the player is actually performing in terms of their form. That then correlates with their social media ranking, so how much noise is being made. They put those two statistics together and give us this sort of leaderboard of our own.
So every 20 minutes we get in new raw data from IBM, which we then use to see who is on the top of the leaderboard.
As soon as our leaderboard shows us a particular player, we stick them on the printer and start the trophy going.
So we have 9 printers going, and the idea is to every day use a different color, and by the end of the 2 weeks we'll have a timeline of all the trophies.
That was one of the hardest jobs we've ever done, because it'd never been done before. So when we have account teams or people screaming and you promised the client this and why haven't you delivered? Well, we don't bloody know. And neither does the partner who is doing it, because we've never done it before. So it's just keeping everyone very calm, not looking at their end result, but just getting through step by step to get rid of the blockers. There will be a blocker at every step. You have to literally, when you're doing these kind of jobs, you have to do it once. Just get rid of that blocker. Don't think of anything else other than how can we all get rid of that. And it's a small little team, not loads of people, not meeting after meeting. It just is a small team of people. Okay, facilitating client agility is the next one. So what we have with Collider, when we did our startup semester recently, Collider are a company that incubates and accelerates about 10 companies twice a year, all to do with mad tech, so advertising tech and marketing tech. And it's to make sure that the agencies, the brands, the people who have a vested interest in mad tech, take these small startups seriously and give them help, mentor them, bring them in early, let them have conversations with your clients so that you can work out that the clients didn't even know they had a problem until they then have a chat with these people that they might have a solution that could fix it, which CNET and Living Lanes did with the guys at Unilever, and which saved them literally millions. They didn't know they had that problem until those companies started coming in. So at first you might think, oh, these startups, they're going to, take all our jobs and our space. Actually, 70% of revenue that goes to those startups is from the agencies. So they want to work with us. They can't do everything. They're just one element of a specific job that can help with our brands. So we owe it to help these startups to work much closer with our brands. So I'm going to fast forward that because I don't think there's enough time. But thoughts to leave you with. So these are all the kind of points that I've gone through with you and hopefully given you examples of how it's worked for me, because this has been my story, my pain, and the things that I know that have worked for me over the years. What's next? So we did our last lab day with Digital Shoreditch because we did it in collaboration with them. So our next one is going to be with Unbound. So this semester is Future Retail. So Unbound are on the 30th of November, I think, and the 1st of December in London. And we'll have an area. So we're starting to do collaborations with our lab days rather than just keeping it Ogilvy and just trialing new things. Some things will work, some things won't work. And kind of lots of different Collider demo days, etc. And we have an email group so when we first started doing all these things, however, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, and we started letting everyone know, oh, this is good and that is good, and people would say, stop spamming me. What that taught us is that not everyone cares about this space. Seth Godin wrote a really nice blog post about hunters and farmers, and that the farmers are making sure the crop is growing fine, and that's the day job, and making sure the client is happy with the usual stuff that is happening, but they're not necessarily interested in the stuff that the hunters are interested in. So it's understanding you can't bring everyone along on this journey. They just don't understand. Stop banging your head against the wall. Your Tourette's will get worse, and you'll get frustrated. Just know that not everyone thinks like you. Sniff out the ones that do, and it will make your journey a whole lot easier. And that's all I've done now within Ogilvy. There are certain people that are wired in that hunter mentality that like this shit. So I would always say, you know who they are, and you're here, so I'm imagining the majority of you are all hunters. So find them. And that's it. Thank you and good luck.
Bravo. Wonderful. Thank you. We have time for some questions. And I promise I'll let you out on time, so no panic. I have a question for you, Nicole, while the audience is gathering their wits after all this. My question is, you said on every level there will be a blocker. That sounds to me like a person unwilling to change. Maybe my boss. And you say you just have to work around that. How do I work around that if it's a human who doesn't
tell them? Deal with the fallout after the event. That's what I do.
That's nice. Okay.
If you have good enough people who are allowing you to do it, that's what I'm saying about Ogilvy, in that I thank them daily. Then what they're going to do, sack me for doing my job? Maybe. But then what's the worst that can happen? I'll get another job.
Yeah. I like this. Do we have another question? Do we have a question from the audience? No? Yes? No?
You're frightened, aren't you?
It's a little frightened, yeah. In that case, you can... Yes, there's a question right there. Okay. What project do you take greatest pride in out of everything you've delivered?
I think that's my passion project, which is the Rough Diamond, because they are our future. And it's being able to affect change in people's lives that ordinarily wouldn't. I wish I could do it on a much bigger scale, and I wish people would just copy it. But the reason they don't, perhaps, is that it's not someone's day job. And that always happens. A day job gets in the way, the P&L, you're paid 100% by client. But I've handed my notice in twice at Ogilvy to stay away from P&L and stay away from client-specific work, because if I work for, say, IBM, and they said jump, and I'd have to say how high, and I'd have to put it on my timesheets, I couldn't come here, or I couldn't be meeting 10 to 15 different companies every other week. There is a space when you're doing R&D where you just can't always do the day job, unfortunately.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, Nicole Yershon.